an episode like this, like the main point of what I want you guys to take away with, is really understanding the bottlenecks that do come with teams, and that like how and what you need to address, what you can see. Tell us, Josh, like what do you really see? I mean, being on the back end of these teams, I mean, obviously you're our COO, so you see the back end of our team, but the back end of the teams that we're scaling at this point, like what's typically the biggest bottlenecks that come with running these offers?
I would honestly say like first thing that comes to mind is probably just like lack of structure. I mean, because a lot of these people who are influencers who have like these these big personal brands and stuff like that, they are they're good at what they do. So like if they're in fitness, they're good at fitness. If they're good at e-commerce, they're good at e-commerce. But the thing is that they're influencers. They're not tech people. They're not business people necessarily. And so when we get into the teams and actually kind of like break down the operations that they're running for their closers and their setters and the systems they have in place, like it's actually very minimal. And even if they do have something, it's like a 5-year-old built it with a crayon. So that's typically what I'd say whenever we're looking at them. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, even now, like, I mean, having worked with, Hermosi in the past, Iman, it kind of like my standard for teams, SOPs, and processes are so much higher. Like, even like the sales reps that I've worked with in the past, like, they were just more talented, just better equipped with like just a better arsenal. And so I was actually having this conversation on the monetized coaching call today with the Iman's team, and one of the questions he asked me was like how do I build out a good SOP, right? And I'm like, dude, as like an offer owner, if you don't even understand what a good SOP looks like, that's a skill deficiency. Like I don't even think you should be running an offer at this point, if you don't even know what a good SOP looks like. But I can tell you just from being on those massive teams, the thing that they valued the most was processes, right? Systems. How strong can onboarding and the processes be for getting somebody integrated into the team, so that it's not on the team, it's always on the closer, the setter, the coach, whoever is coming on as an employee. Because I mean, if you take, let's say 3-4 interviews, and I mean, I know you weren't in this conversation yesterday, but I spoke to one of our clients yesterday. He used to do 7 interviews before letting a closer on his team. 7. But his processes, his SOPs beyond that were amazing. I mean, everybody that's on his team right now has been there for 10 plus years. And so, I mean, obviously beyond the fundamentals of communication and whatnot, I can tell you, I mean, and Josh is on the operations side, which is why I think like beyond just, the sales stuff, beyond just like being able to close and tracking sheets and all of that, it's the systems that are integrated prior to bringing on these closers and setters that make them succeed or make them fail. Because I promise you, just like as a closer or as a setter, if you come in the first, 3 days, 4 days, and you don't wow the team, expectations aren't going to be super high for you, right? If you don't do good things early, you're not going to do things great later. It doesn't work that way. It's the same thing with the team, though. If you bring on the poor SOPs, poor onboarding process, it's not going to get much better later. I always understand that. But I mean, other than that, I mean, what about the things that aren't discussed? I mean, I feel like as an operator, like you see that, and that comes with the day to day. That comes with the territory, and obviously, like, I mean, now with sales.io this last month, I mean, we get a lot of inbound B2B companies that we turn down simply because they're not structured. But I mean, also as an offer owner, like what can sales reps take away from this to like either address or maybe even notice that's maybe not so obvious? Now working so closely with these teams.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say like obviously, master your skill set, master like the skill of sales. But then on top of that, like if you can build yourself into an asset for the team to where like you can spot these deficiencies within the processes and then come up with the solutions to fix them. Like, for example, like pre-call processes or onboarding and, increasing, TTV, like time to value and stuff like that. Like if you can build yourself into a person that can recognize those things early on to when you do come onto offers, and work with the teams, like not only will you be as valuable like as a person, but then like you're showing your value to the offer owner itself. So like if you're working on a big team and you're showing yourself as that big of an asset, you're gonna get more responsibilities handed to you. Like you're gonna get higher priorities on calendars and stuff like that. So it's like just really trying to build yourself into that like irreplaceable, irremovable asset, like that pillar of a business. So that's it.
I think that's great too. I mean, I think a great example is like Sasank in our community. You know, he started off in Singapore. I think he's literally in the military as we speak, and little to no experience, but now he's literally a sales manager for a massive influencer, and he's doing well and he's succeeding. I know. I think you worked pretty close with him on that stuff too. But I was talking about something else you mentioned before about the abundance mindset and that perspective, because I know you work like closely with a lot of our clients, and it's some of these things that even I don't really see. But I want you to touch on that if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just like things that the offer owners themselves don't necessarily see.
Maybe not, they don't necessarily see, but like almost like with their character, right? I think this is something that when we talk about like integrity and bringing on some of these clients, like we don't take on everybody, because I mean I'm sure we can definitely tell when an offer owner is kind of like selling us to work with us and whatnot, and we see that a lot, of course. But I don't want to steal your thunder. I kind of want you to touch on it, on what you. And I hope you know what I'm talking about with the abundance perspective, and living abundantly. But I'll toss it over to you on that.
I mean, it's kind of a 2-in-1. Like I'd say a lot of the people have like very big egos. So they think that they know everything about the business. But then number 2 that goes along with that is they're scared to let up, percentages of their company to have us work with them, or like have us like let us have a little bit more control within the process. So it goes back to the ego. It's like, the offer owner will be like, I know everything about the business. I was the one that built this SOP, but that SOP is not very good. And so when we want to come in and replace it with something, better, they're, hesitant to implement something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'll piggyback on it, because I think, as we've grown, I've been more of a mentor to some of these influencers and some of these clients that we do have. And I think a lot of what comes to the territory of growing a company and growing a business and really trying to develop your team and build this commitment, build this culture, is how you are as a leader. And I think a lot of them don't understand that it's really important. Yeah, you want to detach eventually, sure, you can, but either have a sales manager in place that they push for, or you be the person that they push for. It comes from the top down every single time. And so when I was talking about living abundantly, obviously ego does play a factor, but I think too often that a lot of offer owners, because if they don't come from a sales background, they don't realize that in sales, days feel like weeks feel like months, and months feel like years. And if that's what your sales reps are going through every single time, every single day that they come onto these calls, and you're kind of just treating it as if like, oh yeah, got all the time in the world, we'll eventually build this, we'll eventually build that. It's not going to serve anybody. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve your team, right? And then when you're surprised that these teams churn, or these sales reps churn, it's because you need to be able to push for your team like they're pushing for you. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I always have to give some more offer owners, because they'll ask me, should I bring on 2, 3 closers? Should I bring on extra people? Should I this? Should I that? I said, you can. You totally, and I literally said this to somebody yesterday, you totally can, but make sure you can deliver. Because if you say you can deliver these leads, and you say that you can do this, you'll post the content, you'll run the ads, but it's not there, 3 days go by, 5 days go by, I can promise you, strong talent on a stealth team, they'll feel like they were deceived. For sure. They're not going to wait around for it.
Yeah. I mean, like, exactly, you said, like, on top of that, like, they overpromise and they set these great expectations, and they come in only to be just completely let down. Like, it's like, they have this big personal brand, this big perception of like, this is me. And then the top tier talent gets in there and it's like, what the heck is this? Like, this is not anything what I thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I think the expectations, like, it's always about alignment between expectations. Because if there's a big brand, there's assumption that internally processes and SOPs will be in place, and that, okay, cool, if I jump in here, they'll have a good system. They have millions of followers. yeah, hundreds of thousands of followers. Like I should be able to walk in and be integrated into a team that I can grow with, and they understand exactly what they're doing. And you'd be surprised that, I mean, like even some of the biggest guys in the space that, maybe not that we worked with, that we do know that we might obviously people on our team have worked with. It's like even their processes weren't put together. So like I think when there's just expectation from the brand, a brand representation that isn't aligned on the internal side with the systems and processes, there then becomes this friction, almost like this fear, this resistance from like the sales rep. And then over time, it's either that it can get better or it can get worse, right? It depends on how well the offer owner operates, and how well the leader they're going to be on that side. But it's not always about like obviously like being structured, because I've seen structured teams that make no revenue, right? That's also another issue, right? There are a lot more skill deficiencies in between there, of course, as well. Maybe they don't even understand their ICP. So that plays a big factor. But I think, I guess going forward, like in the rest of this year, what do you think? Like if like, let's say like a sales rep needed to bring to their offer owner, or if an offer owner is listening to this, like what do you think that their main focus should be on in scaling? Like if for the rest of this year, what would you say after scaling these teams now, should be like a primary focus for some of these people?
I would say honestly, just trying to understand the like trying to understand the highest leverage tasks that an offer owner can do to then scale, to then fix their problems, to then keep building their business. Because like a lot of times, for example, we can think that this certain deficiency in this is causing all these other problems, but realistically it's like if we fix a problem a little bit down the line, that's going to solve everything else that way. And so it's like, for example, someone with like a smaller personal brand, you can build all of the structure and all of the frameworks and all the SOPs that you need. But realistically, the highest leverage point for you to do is create content, or, to build a personal brand and short form and all of these things. And it's like, what is the highest leverage task that you can do that will keep pushing the business forward rather than just stick in the same cycle of like building or trying to improvise and stuff like this? So I'd say honestly, just trying to find like those key bottlenecks that are keeping you from the revenue that you want to hit, the numbers you want to hit, and then just attacking those and then letting everything else kind of fall into line and fix those as they come.
So I love Josh. I love Josh because he thinks that logical side of like, he thinks for me on that logical side of my brain that I don't have to think about. Because it's a great answer. And I'll tell you my sides. I have two things: communication and execution. I think fundamentally what we've seen, like time over and time over, when people either come into us as a lead or the teams that we work with now, communication is probably like 80% of it. If there's a lack of communication, I can tell you right now, if you could just do that, I mean, it proves my point with sales.io, right? We want to change the world with communication, how people communicate. People are poor communicators. They're lazy, poor communicators. If people just communicate, even the bad things, like, oh, hey, like, we don't have calls for you for the next week, and just communicate that instead of just waiting. People don't even do that, right? So it's like we've seen that before, and that's always to their detriment. And then execution, that's literally 60% of the reason why people fail. And in business and sales and in general, is execution. And I feel like if you can just have the discipline to do both of those things, and you don't communicate at a high level, but just do it regardless. And it can be, I mean, at the simplest of things, updates, like transparency to your team, doesn't matter. If you can communicate well to your team, right? Even if it's one closer, whatever, or even if it's a sales to an offer owner, vice versa, like same thing. Communicate to your team, right? And then execute on whatever it is that you say. You won't do bad. Like you really will not do bad at all. And I think I really wish it was that simple. Because I mean, if we look at our team internally, I mean, dude, you see everything. It's like we do a weekly meeting on Monday. I'm like, what are we doing for this week? Cool. What are we going to execute on? We execute on it. We communicate when it's done, or if it's not done and why it's not done. We do some weekly check-ins to make sure that we are on point to do the things that we're executing. And it's that simple. And we just don't fail. Like, and we do pretty well, So, Josh, why don't people think that simply, man? I don't understand, Like, yeah. Anything else you want to add, Josh, before we close out here? I don't have to make this a long one.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback off of what you said, I mean, if you can communicate well, then you can execute well. Like keeping your word to your team. Like if you say that you're going to do something or that you're going to fix something, build something out, you have to execute on it. Otherwise, your team, the people underneath you, are going to start, losing their trust in you and losing, that respect that they have for you as an offer owner. And so, if you're going to bring in people on your team and you want to attract like those high level people, you have to fulfill on your own promise. Like it's the same thing like with actually running an offer. I mean, if you like, you can make these crazy guarantees and these promises and stuff like that, and you can communicate all of these things to them. But if they get in and they can't actually, execute on anything, there's no actual high level value there. It's the exact same thing, both for your, for your team that you're working with, or for, the people that you're, getting into your program. So if you can just communicate well and execute well, you can beat 99% of people.
Yeah. I said it before in that reel. Josh doesn't say much, but when he does, it's valuable. So, Josh, great having you on here today, man. It's so funny how we just get like a little fucking conversation and turn it into a little podcast, dudes. You're the best, man. I'll see you later.
Yes.